Guys, and welcome to this video, which I think is going to change things for a lot of people. This is something that I put together while I was doing my cognitive behavioral therapy course. As far as I'm aware, nobody has ever brought this up before, and I think this is going to really help people going forward with their gym experience. I've already explained this concept to a few nervous gym goers, and the moment they understand this, it kind of, the final piece gets put into place and they feel a lot better about it. I've actually gained clients from helping them realize this as well. So this isn't just something that I'm trying to throw out there because it sticks. It does actually make a lot of sense. So the topic is anxiety and the gym. Okay, how do these two go together? Because so often people will come in who are genuinely nervous anyway. They start exercising, they have a panic attack, and they leave. And they assume it's because of the gym. Now, to understand why this is, you have to understand anxiety itself, okay? It's not just having a panic attack. It is not just worrying about stuff, and it doesn't just come along out of nowhere, okay? So, first of all, anxiety as a definition is an overreactive adrenal response to a perceived threat, the fight, flight, or freeze response. And the key part here is a perceived threat. Now, this mechanism has kept us alive for X amount of thousands of years, okay? Because when we come into contact with a dangerous situation, our adrenaline spikes, our cortisol spikes, our senses get heightened, our heart rate increases, so more oxygen gets to the muscles, our muscles become tighter so that we can go off and attack or run. Sometimes we freeze, unfortunately, but this is a very important response to danger. Where it becomes anxiety is that you are constantly perceiving danger where it does not exist. And this is the problem. Now, the reason we can end up with things like this, it is caused by prolonged exposure to stressful situations or environments, or a sudden traumatic events that the brain cannot rationalize. Now, if you are, for instance, a soldier, and you are constantly bombarded by fire, you're constantly on edge, you're constantly alert, you train yourself to be in a heightened sense of alertness. If you are walking along the street and all of a sudden a building falls on top of you or near you, it's a very quick traumatic experience that you cannot rationalize. Therefore, you become scared to walk on the street. You become anxious going outside because something really bad happened to you that your body physically cannot put the pieces in place because there was no lead up to it. Again, if you are prolonged in an abusive relationship, in a bad family situation, and you are constantly subject to waiting for bad things to happen, you train yourself to be at that point. Okay, so it isn't just something that comes out of the blue. There is usually a reason behind it. Now, it could be prolonged or it could be a sudden incident. Either of these are completely rational. There are low-end anxiety moments as well that are caused by prolonged stress, but you have a good coping mechanism. So you could be a high-functioning person with anxiety. I would fall into that category. I don't have anxiety per se. I have more neuroticisms and stuff. I overthink everything all the time. It's very hard for my brain to turn off. If my routine is disturbed or I'm not kept busy, my brain has free play to go all over the place. But because I'm high functioning, I can push it to one side and still get what I need to get done. It just makes for a very interesting party in my head. Okay, so for some of you, it's overwhelming and you have to stop. For some of you, you find ways to muddle on, but it doesn't mean it's not there, which is why it's such an interesting topic for people. Okay, now, signs and symptoms. A spike in adrenaline and cortisol. Okay, so these two chemicals are these stress chemicals. Adrenaline and cortisol in short doses ramp up your response to things. They make you move faster, they make your vision better, they make your hearing sharper, they make your breath shorter, so you're making sure you're taking in quicker breaths to get oxygen in your body, and it prepares you for the event to come. Now, if you are constantly like this, as the cortisol video that I've done before has explained, this is bad. It becomes very detrimental to your long-term health if you are constantly in a state of high alert. We are not supposed to be in a state of high alert, but unfortunately, due to these conditions stated, you have to live in that way because that's how you've been conditioned to be. Now, once these start getting through your system, and here's the important bit that's going to follow over. It can increase heart rate and muscle tension. There is a loss of breath, nausea, dizziness, and sweating. Now, of course, if your adrenaline and cortisol go up, your heart rate is going to increase, your muscles get tight. They're ready, they're tense, because if they're tighter and they're tensed, you are less prone to injury because you're more reactive. Okay, they've tensed up. It's no different when if someone's going to punch you in the stomach, you tense your stomach. You don't go in soft because you tense those muscles. They protect the body. Okay, this is what your body's doing. It's putting itself into a protective state where it can attack and run. Hopefully you don't freeze, but some people do, unfortunately. Okay, now this you may all know. This bit's great. You understand anxiety, or if you didn't, you do understand it now. It's quite complex. It's not so cut and dry as you're just overthinking everything. Okay. When we realise that this is how we got anxiety, these two bits aren't necessarily as important as these parts, because this is what anxiety is and how it is caused. Okay, but it is important to know that. This is where it's all going to make sense and carry over. Because if we move over to the gym now, when you go into exercise, the first thing you're going to do, even if you're warming up, is you are actively looking to increase your heart rate. Most people will start having a panic attack once they've got past the first 5 to 10 minutes of their cardio, because all of a sudden you are getting hot and sweaty. Okay, dizziness, sweating, nausea, muscle tension, increased HR. Okay, shortness of breath, you start to pant because you are doing this on purpose. You are actively looking to get to that state because that is what the exercise is supposed to do. Now, your body cannot differentiate at this point between purposely putting itself in this situation and having an anxiety attack, or feeling that there's a threat coming along. Because it hasn't learned to turn that response off, you purposely putting yourself in that situation makes no sense to your body. So it just assumes you're under attack. And that is where people really find it difficult sometimes when they suffer from anxiety to even get through the door, because they understand there's a good chance that they're going to get to this point. Or more importantly, if they have a panic attack in the middle of the gym and they don't know why, this can be very scary. Okay? Again, moderate and increased to intense exercise, increased adrenaline and cortisol. Now, if one of the symptoms is a spike in adrenaline and cortisol through exercise, again, as the other video explained, in exercise, adrenaline and cortisol elevation is a good thing because it breeds adaptation and it causes the stimulus required to grow. But unfortunately, if you're constantly sat at 70% and we knock you up into 80, 90, when a person who doesn't suffer from anxiety may sit in the low 40% and it only brings them up to 70%, you're going to bubble over. Okay? So now hopefully you'll see a pattern emerging that by purposely putting yourself into this situation, you are mimicking everything that comes from your usual anxiety attack. But you don't understand that because why would you? Nobody's explained this to you. So you're not having a panic attack or an anxiety attack per se. You are unfortunately, or fortunately, purposely putting yourself in a situation that mimics every symptom of your attack. Okay? Weights becoming heavy unexpectedly or training to failure can again trigger this attack response off. If all of a sudden you make a big jump in your weights and it catches you by surprise, that again can trigger off this fight or flight response. It's a perceived threat. All of a sudden things have got difficult. You can no longer move things properly. You will start to panic. It is completely normal. But you have to understand that if you're already in this symptom with anxiety, it's going to be twice as bad because you're already in a state of perceived threats. You see everything as a threat. The fact that you got into the gym is massive for you guys because you just assume the worst because your body's been programmed to do so. Everything is a threat. Everything is new. The noises, the sounds, everything's being taken in very heightened sense. Okay, where everyone else is walking around calmly, everything's ringing off your ears. Okay. Finally, lack of recovery. Now, this is how you're going to find out how you deal with things. And once you can understand this, things will become a lot easier. So a lack of recovery. Now, there are two ways people tend to deal with an anxiety attack build in the gym. Either of them is fine. You have to find out what works for you. Now, you can either continue on and get rid of some of this nervous energy. Now, when you don't understand why you feel like this, pushing through isn't maybe the best idea. It would be better to take a breath, stop, let yourself calm down, Realize that there is no threat. Do your grounding exercises if you have them, and then go again. Now, once you realize that actually you've just put yourself into this situation on purpose, because that's what training does, you now have options. You can continue to exercise and burn through that nervous energy to get it out of your system, because you need to release it somehow. Or you can take a break. Now, when I say lack of recovery, it doesn't mean you're not having the right rest periods in between sets for a stimulus. It means you recovering from the attack itself. You know what you need to do normally. Some people, when they have an anxiety attack, they need to go for a walk. They need to expel some energy because there's too much pent-up energy inside of them. Some people need to just stop for a second and ground themselves. Either way is fine, but sometimes it's not as easy to do in a gym environment. So you need to decide how you're going to deal with this based on how you normally would deal with it. And the key to all of this is knowing that all of these parts of the gym are purposely putting you in a situation where your anxiety attack is at its worst. And it's okay, because once you realize this, the key to beating anxiety from a behavioral therapy perspective is putting you in the situation and showing you the outcome rather than letting you perceive the outcome. Because that's what anxiety is. You are perceiving a threat that may or may not be there. Now, for most people, we all live with a heightened degree of being slightly anxious at times, because as I said, it's a normal response. Now, being anxious is not the same as having anxiety. They are two very different things. And we throw this word around a lot, far too much. You feel anxious about one thing, you must suffer from anxiety. No, you are just showing respect to the dangers that are out there. I used to do performing arts. Would I get anxious before going out and performing? Of course I would, because I was showing respect that this could go wrong. I could forget my lines. I didn't suffer from anxiety. I know people that do, and it is a very different thing. And I think if we realise that being anxious is very different to having anxiety, it's going to make all of this a little bit easier. But if you are perceiving a threat that has no outcome, that's when you have anxiety. Now, to put yourself into this place. Now, the trouble is you don't know this. We don't understand from the beginning that by going into the gym, we are looking to increase our heart rate. We are looking to increase our adrenaline and cortisol. We are looking to make ourselves sweaty, get our muscles tight. You get dizzy because you've done a heavy set. You can feel nauseous because you've worked too hard. If these are all the symptoms of your anxiety attack and you're doing this on purpose, it's very difficult to comprehend if nobody's explained that that's the case to you. So my hope is after this video that you can go forward, get into the gym, even just a little bit, and understand that everything that you're doing and feeling is okay because you're doing it on purpose, and that this is the outcome that it should have. And now that you understand how to recover based on your normal recovery techniques, you can go forward and actually get more out of your health and fitness. If you have any questions, because this is a complex subject, and I agree that this video may or may not answer questions, or it might even open up new ones that you would like to talk about, please get hold of me. I'll be happy to set up a proper phone call with you from a therapeutic standpoint as well as a personal training standpoint, and let's get to the bottom of why you feel how you feel. And even if it's just explaining what we can do around these points, or even understanding anxiety a little bit better, I'm more than happy to help. As always, guys, wonderful talking to you. Speak soon.